Welcome to Pyar Pyar Pyar, the Swaddle series exploring the evolution of filmy romance. सालों पहले की बात है. SRK entered our screens and said,
प्यार दोस्ती है.
and boy was he right. In today's episode, we follow Bollywood's bromantic evolution. वैसे देखा जाए तो ये ब्रोमांस वाली परंपरा सालों पहले से चली आ रही है. इनफैक्ट 60s में भी in films like दोस्ती and संगम, we've seen male friendship taking center stage. But it was in the 70s and 80s that this really grew into its own. The Hindi film industry took a page out of Hollywood and began churning out buddy films like Sholay, Anand, Sagar, and Kurbani. What makes these romances refreshing is that they occupy a distinctly ambiguous space. Dr. Olka Anjaria says that in a lot of buddy films, the people in question are more than friends, but they are not lovers. And honestly, that is the closest we can get to ever really labeling these relationships. But of course, people can assign different meanings to it, and they have. Some people consider these friendships to be homoerotic. And can you really blame them? In his paper, R. Raj Rao points out that though the word yar loosely translates to friend, the idea of a yar goes much beyond the Western idea of platonic friendship. In fact, at times it could even mean lover. This is especially convenient in these films that had to convey the yari not so openly. What adds to this reading of homoerotic yarana is the role played, or rather not played, by the lead heroine in these buddy films. She would basically appear in the film for 20 minutes and maybe have a song or two before fading into the background in the face of what Professor Gayatri Gopinath calls macho brotherhood. And the person who arguably features the most in buddy films of the time is Amitabh Bachchan. In his films like Namak Haram, Dostana, and Silsila, the male leads share incredibly close relationships, one that especially comes through in the passion-filled Yari songs. In fact, the song Ye Dosti has even been used by the queer community at San Francisco and New York Pride parades. Ruth Vanita and Salim Kidwai have both claimed that these were coded messages to the LGBTQ+ community, and honestly, I totally see it. But others completely disagree with these readings and perceive the friendship as a healthy emotional bond between two men. But whichever way you read it, romance to hai. Either queer-coded friendship or the romanticization of a strong straight bond. Again, how people perceive these scenes is completely up to them. But the odd thing is that the openness and comfort with the physical proximity that you would see in these on-screen male friendships has almost disappeared over the years. Homophobia on screen increased and almost grew into a comic trend in the 90s and 2000s. Actors like Suresh Menon and Bobby Darling began to play roles that stereotyped gay men and women, portraying them as being predatory towards the people they were attracted to.
I mean, how you guys handle him or handle her, for God's sake. I'm feeling molested, yeah.
But in the mid-2000s, we see the seemingly contradictory worlds of comical queer depictions and bromance colliding with Karan Johar's films like Kal Ho Na Ho and Dostana. Margaret Redlich points out that Karan Johar's films portray queer characters in a manner that finds a balance between mainstream and art house cinema. In Kal Ho Na Ho, the angel-like figure of Aman, played by superstar Shah Rukh Khan, is comfortable with queerness, not disgusted by it. When Kantaben mistakes Aman and Rohit for being a gay couple, Aman finds it funny and plays it up whenever he gets a chance.
Rohit, introduce me कराओगे?
Later, when Rohit's father is informed about his apparent deviant sexuality, instead of rage and shock, we see confusion that leads to acceptance. All of this is presented to the audience through comedy. But within this comedy is the message of acceptance, be it in Aman, Rohit, or his father. In the 2008 film Dostana, we see the same thing. Here, the queerness is not a misunderstanding, but a deliberate ploy played up by the heroes. The bromance is between John Abraham's Kunal and Abhishek Bachchan's Sam, who pretend to be a gay couple so they can rent an apartment.
पर अगर हम जैसे दो पापा लोग रहेंगे तो फिर तीसरे का तो सवाल ही नहीं है, क्योंकि हम तो वैसे भी एक साथ हैं और हमेशा हमेशा रहेंगे. क्यों?
Here too, in typical Desi fashion, Kiran K's Mrs. Acharya is completely outraged at the prospect of her son being gay. This is ridiculously presented in the song Maada Ladla. However, she is the person who is seen as the object of ridicule, not Kunal or Sam. She's shown attempting an exorcism on them and misconstruing their actions whenever she sees them. And over the course of the film, this traditional Indian mother undergoes a change as she comes to terms with her son's sexuality. In fact, she goes so far as to bless her son's partner Sam using traditional Hindu rituals. There are strong messages of equality in love and acceptance of queerness in both these films. Of all the approaches to depicting queer relationships in Bollywood, this might not be the boldest or the most nuanced, but it does present queerness to the very heteronormative Indian audience with a formula that can get to them: comedy. And it visibly worked, since both of these films were commercially successful, a rarity when it comes to films with queer themes in India. Interestingly, what makes men really bond in both movies is the woman. She is the object of their desire and hence the subject of all their manipulations. Even today, films do have bromance. Sometimes heartwarming, sometimes unbelievably toxic, but always defined. The physical proximity that male friends would earlier be comfortable with is replaced by strict definitions of straight and gay, which they follow at all times. But hey, that's where the internet comes through. Even though filmmakers don't dabble with queerness in mainstream or pan-Indian movies, people have their own readings of these films, some of which happen to be very, very queer. In films like Pathaan, War or RRR, netizens have pointed out the homoerotic tension between the two leads. Let's attempt something. Let's try a homoerotic reading of the film RRR. Director Rajamouli's magnum opus is helmed by two hyper-masculine men who single-handedly emerge victorious out of the most extreme situations. They have superhuman strength, they have their individual love interests, and they both have their own battles to fight. Nothing about this reads queer, yet. And then, about 30 minutes into the film, they meet. They immediately begin speaking in sign language and seem to just get each other. And only after they meet do we get to see their frivolous and carefree sides. They help each other out, save each other's lives, and Bhim even says this to Ram.
जान से भी प्यारी तुम्हारी दोस्ती तो हमेशा होगी। खुशी खुशी कुर्बान हो जाऊंगा। चलता हूँ अन्ना।
All of this aside, perhaps what really drives the point home is the scene of the great betrayal. When Ram stops Bhim by using the same holy thread that Bhim had given him, Bhim's scream doesn't come from failure or rage, but from the feeling of a gut-wrenching betrayal by someone he thought was his own. Maybe that's what hints at the bond surpassing the realm of friendship. And in the end, when they reconcile, they are absolutely unstoppable. They are telepathically connected, gliding through the forest, anticipating each other's movements, and absolutely annihilating the British Empire. A columnist even pointed out the quirkiness of spanking your lover, the intensity of feelings, both love and hate between the protagonists of RRR, lends itself effortlessly to a strange reading of the homosocial as the homosexual. So much of our definition of an ideal Indian man is restrictive because of rigid gender roles. But often it is the friendship between two men which is strangely afforded a gentleness. For years, we found it difficult to navigate spaces without explicit labels. But Bollywood's age-old tryst with bromance is proof that those spaces can exist. As romance evolves and we find ourselves confronting newer frontiers in relationships and sexualities, maybe we take a page out of this very nebulous bromantic trope that has been around for decades to explore what can lie ahead. This was it for our series Pyar Pyar Pyar. Thank you for joining us in our epic journey mapping Bollywood's romantic tropes and the socio-political climate behind their evolution. We hope you liked this series, and if you did, then you know the drill. Like, share and comment on the video and subscribe to The Swaddle for more.